I'm Dawn Hill, host of Heart, Mind, and Purpose, a podcast where we explore what it means to live an aligned and wholehearted life. I am a professional counselor with over 25 years of experience and a deep love for meaningful conversation. I bring you honest reflections, soulful questions, and meaningful tools for managing life. Whether you're seeking clarity, connection, or simply a space to breathe, this podcast is here for you. Tune in weekly and join me on the journey.
Welcome to Heart, Mind, and Purpose, the podcast where we explore how our inner lives shape the way we love, connect, and grow. Hi, this is Paul Gramercy, producer of today's episode, where Dawn explores how to recognize the difference between safe and unsafe people in our lives and why discernment is essential in dating and close relationships. She unpacks patterns like gaslighting, narcissism, and control, offering practical wisdom to help you protect your heart and stay connected to yourself. This episode is called Safe or Unsafe, Learning the Difference in Relationships. Now here's your host, Dawn Hill.
Welcome back to Heart, Mind, and Purpose. Today we're talking about something many people feel but don't always know how to put into words, and that's how to recognize when someone in your life is safe and when they are not. This is especially important when you're dating, forming new relationships, or even trying to understand the dynamics in relationships you've been in for years. So today we're going to talk about what safe people look like, what unsafe patterns look like, and how to learn to say no, developing discernment, understanding for things like gaslighting and narcissism can help you protect your heart and your life in very practical ways. This is an important conversation, so please settle in with me. I received this question from a listener, and I think that many people quietly wonder about the same thing. Here's the question. How do I know when someone is an unsafe person, and especially, how do I know who might be okay to date? Those are such honest questions because most of us weren't taught how to recognize safety in people. We were taught how to be kind, to be forgiving, to give people the benefit of the doubt, but not necessarily how to discern whether someone is emotionally, psychologically, relationally, and spiritually safe for us. So that's what we're going to talk about. A safe person helps you become more of the person you were created to be. They help you feel more connected to yourself and more able to connect to others. They support your pursuit of health, your purpose, your faith, and your gifts. They build you up, they nurture you, and they want you to thrive. An unsafe person slowly erodes your ability to trust yourself and others. They tend to be controlling, possessive, and invasive of your boundaries. You start feeling like you're living in bondage, like you can't make choices freely without worrying how they will react. A safe person will help you mend your wounds, and an unsafe person will use your wounds against you. Healthy people respect your boundaries. They are for you. They want what is best for you. Unhealthy people want to use you to get what they want, often for things they are unwilling to do for themselves. And here's where this becomes practical. We have to learn how to say no. Because if you don't know what your values are, if you don't know your priorities, if you don't know where your limits are, you won't recognize when someone is pushing you past them. Saying no is not just a word, it's a muscle. And for many people, that muscle never got developed. Maybe you weren't allowed to say no growing up. Maybe no felt like rejection, abandonment, or danger. But saying no is how you live from your values instead of away from them. When you are clear on who you are, what you value, and what you want to pursue, you start to develop what I call the tool of distinction. Over time, you begin to distinguish who is safe for you and who is not. Not because they are bad people, but because they are not safe for you in the context of your relationship. Scripture says in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That is wisdom, and that is discernment. So let's talk about one specific kind of unsafe behavior that is talked a lot about right now, and that's gaslighting. This is not a label we throw around lightly. Gaslighting is when someone manipulates your sense of reality in order to gain power and control over you. They invalidate your experience so often that you begin to doubt yourself. You know what happened. They tell a completely different story, and then you end up apologizing for things you didn't do. The goal of gaslighting is to make you doubt your own reality. So the work is not about changing them. It's about protecting your clarity. Here's an example of gaslighting. Let's say you and your partner had a conversation last night. They raised their voice, they spoke harshly, and you went to bed feeling hurt and unsettled. The next day you say calmly, "Hey, when you raised your voice last night, it really hurt me." And they respond with any or all of the following. "I never raised my voice, you're too sensitive." Or, "You're always exaggerating." Or, "You're remembering it wrong." Or, "Why are you trying to start drama?" Or, "You're imagining things." Now here's where gaslighting happens. You know what you experienced, but after 5 minutes of this conversation, you start thinking, "Did I imagine that? Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am remembering it wrong. Maybe this is really all my fault." So instead of them taking responsibility for hurting you, you end up apologizing, and that's gaslighting. They didn't just deny what happened, they made you doubt your own experience of what happened. Here are some practical, grounded things a person can do when in a relationship with a gaslighter. Number 1, start documenting your reality. Gaslighting works because conversations get rewritten later, so keep a private note in your phone or a journal. Write what was said, when, and how you felt, and save texts or emails. This is not for court. This is for your own peace of mind. You'll start to see patterns instead of isolated incidences. Number 2, stop arguing about what really happened. That's the trap. Gaslighters will pull you into endless debates about memory, tone, wording, and intention. So instead of saying, "That's not what happened," shift to, "We remember this differently." You are no longer trying to win the reality argument. You are refusing to enter the distortion. Number 3, shorten your responses. Gaslighting feeds on long emotional explanations. Practice things like, "I disagree," "That is not how I experienced it," and "I'm not going to argue about this." Remember to be calm, brief, and repetitive. Number 4, strengthen outside reality anchors. Talk to safe people. Gaslighting isolates you inside the other person's version of reality. Say out loud to a trusted friend, "Here's what happened. Does that make sense to you?" Healthy people will gently help you recalibrate. 5, pay attention to how you feel after interactions. This is huge. If you constantly walk away feeling confused, guilty, doubting yourself, or apologizing for things you do, that's data your body often knows before your mind does. So number 6, set boundaries around the topic, not the person. You may not be ready or able to leave the relationship, but you can say, "I'm not discussing this again, and I'm done talking about what happened." That way you can exit the circular conversations. Number 7, rebuild trust with yourself. Gaslighting erodes self-trust. Practice small internal statements like, "I know what I heard, I know how I felt, and my experience is valid even if they deny it." This is slow repair work, but it is still repair work. Number 8, notice if the pattern is escalating. Gaslighting often increases when you start to assert yourself, you start seeing clearly, and you start setting boundaries. That escalation is information and not failure. Consider outside support. A counselor, a pastor, or a wise friend can help you see the pattern from the outside of the fog. Gaslighting is very hard to see clearly from inside. The big reframe here is you cannot convince a gaslighter to see reality, but you can refuse to abandon your own. That's where your power is. So what about narcissism? You may also find yourself in a relationship with someone who has strong narcissistic traits. And here's what's important for you to know. You are not dealing with a communication problem. You are dealing with a personality pattern. You cannot expect empathy. You cannot expect mutuality. And you will often feel invisible, unimportant, and used. And because you are a healthy person, you'll keep thinking, if I explain this better, then they'll understand. But that's not how this works. Here are a few things you can do, because being in a relationship with a narcissistic person is exhausting in very particular ways. You slowly start organizing your life around their moods, their needs, and their reactions, and you don't even realize it's happening. The first thing to understand is this: you are not dealing with a communication problem, you are dealing with a personality pattern. And I can't say that strongly enough, but please remember it. So the goal is not to get them to understand. The goal is to learn how to protect yourself inside the relationship. Here are some grounded, realistic things that actually can help. Number 1, stop expecting empathy where there isn't any, and that is the heartbreaking piece. You may keep explaining, hoping they'll finally get it, but most narcissistic personalities do not tolerate being wrong, do not take responsibility, and do not truly see other people's emotional worlds. When you stop expecting emotional reciprocity, you stop being surprised and hurt by its absence. Lower what you share emotionally. Your vulnerability often becomes information they can use later against you. They use your vulnerability to twist the facts, to minimize, to shame you, and to win arguments. Practice sharing less of your inner world with them and share it more with safe people. Number 3, short, neutral responses work best. Because the narcissist feeds on emotional reactions, use calm, flat responses like, okay, I hear you. I'm not discussing this any longer. No drama, no long explanations. You become very boring to argue with, and they don't like that. Number 4, stop trying to prove your point. You will not win logic battles. You'll get pulled into a circular argument, word games, and history rewrites. Say, we see this differently, and then disengage. Number 5, build a life outside of them, and this is critical. Narcissistic relationships shrink your world intentionally. So, reconnect with friends, pursue your interests, and strengthen your support systems. You'll need places where you can feel like yourself again. Number 6, notice how often you feel guilty. Narcissistic dynamics make you feel responsible for their feelings, responsible for keeping peace, and responsible for fixing everything. Start asking yourself, is this actually mine to carry? Number 7, set boundaries around behavior, not personality. For instance, don't say you're selfish. Say, I'm not staying in a conversation where I'm yelled at. You can't change them. You can change what you participate in, though. Number 8, don't announce your boundaries, just enforce them. Narcissistic people often see boundaries as challenges, so quietly do the boundary instead of explaining it. Number 9, get an outside perspective, because over time you start doubting your instincts. A counselor or wise friend can help you remember what normal feels like. Number 10, be honest with yourself about the cost. These relationships often require enormous amounts of emotional energy. Ask yourself gently, what is this costing me to stay? Not to force a decision, but to keep clarity. The big truth is you cannot love a narcissist into health, but you can learn how not to disappear while being with them. The big takeaway is the best protection against unsafe people is becoming a healthy person. Because when you are emotionally, psychologically, relationally, and spiritually healthy, their dysfunction does not work on you in the same way. You develop discernment, you learn to say no, and you learn to recognize safety, and all of that is wisdom. Recognizing who is safe and who is unsafe is not about labeling people as good or bad. It's about wisdom. It's about learning to guard your heart and live from your values instead of away from them. The more emotionally, psychologically, relationally, and spiritually healthy you become, the easier it is to recognize safety. You begin to trust yourself, and you begin to see clearly, and you begin to feel confident saying yes to what aligns with your values and no to what doesn't. Because the goal isn't to change other people, the goal is to stay connected to yourself. And when you can do that, you are far less likely to lose yourself in someone else. Until next time, may you be kind to your heart, clear in your mind, and grounded in your purpose. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Heart, Mind, and Purpose. If you found this conversation helpful, we'd love for you to share it with someone who could use some encouragement. You can also find resources, listener handouts, and more at dawnmariehill.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode as we keep exploring how the heart, the mind, and our sense of purpose all work together for a life well lived. If you have questions or comments, please contact Dawn at heartmindandpurpose.podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.